All right. Things from a few days ago have changed so much for the Jazz. Let's talk about it. It's the Hoops Nerd postgame show. Go Jazz! All right, Jazz fans, Hoops Nerd fans, welcome to the show. I'm really happy about what we are seeing from this Utah Jazz team. Tonight was phenomenal. A lot to be happy about, both just granular in this just game and also with the grand scheme of things. I honestly, just right before the show starts, I kind of just am collecting my thoughts. And I'm personally just extremely happy about what Utah is doing. Ryan Smith, Danny Ainge, Justin Zanuck. I know that there are days where I absolutely get so mad. Right now, I couldn't be happier because they are fulfilling what they said they were going to do. I know it took a couple years to really commit to a direction, and maybe even this last offseason they had some ideas that I would not have liked. But you know what? What they're doing right now is exactly what they need to be doing, and I am as happy as you could be. I hope you're happy with what the Jazz are doing. If not, then I don't know what to tell you. But anyways, as far as the New Orleans Pelicans, they come into this. The Pelicans are legitimately good now that Zion Williamson is back. In fact, I want to bring this up and just show you. And this really affects the Jazz. This was a big-time loss for Utah in terms of the long-term outlook. Why is my internet? What's going on? All right, basketball reference. Let's pull up the New Orleans Pelicans, who are still below the Jazz. Although after tonight, look what happened. Utah just overtakes New Orleans. So this was an incredible loss for the Jazz, which is in a lot of ways is more of a win. Great win by the Pelicans. But look at this. So Zion Williamson came back a couple weeks ago? Look at this. All of a sudden, this team wins more than they lose because they win tonight. That's 3 in a row for the Pelicans. That is 4 of their, last 5? And, 6 of their last 10, 11, 12, whatever. This is huge for Utah. If they're trying to showcase Zion up until trade deadline, that's great because what it's doing is knocking them out of that top 2, top 3 contention. This is great. And I want to talk a little bit too really quickly because things are just, honestly, I know I was kind of despairing the other day, and it was rightfully so because if Utah had not done what they've done, they'd already be locked into the 2. And if they had been doing some of what they're doing now earlier in the year, like making sure they lose against the Mavericks when they rest, Kyrie Irving and things like that, Utah would be right here in contention for the 1, which is fine. I don't think Utah is likely going to beat out Washington for the 1. Never say never, but 4 games in a tank race is huge. If you don't follow the tanks, it's really hard to do. But anyways, Utah has a lot to be excited about, and this is going very well. And, if you say I've overreacted, well, guess what? You might be new to the Hoops Nerd channel because this guy overreacts a little bit sometimes, but that's what we do. Anyways, the Raptors, this is from Kirthika. I'm sorry, Kirthika, if I'm saying your name wrong. Kirthika Uthaya Kumar. She covers stats in the NBA, and I think she covers the Raptors. I just barely followed her on Blue Sky. But anyways, Raptors have 3 full days off after tonight and don't play again until Tuesday. 21 of their final 40 games are against other teams with losing records. So they have Toronto, who is basically tied with Utah. Utah has to lose 2 more games to tie with them. So, they're ahead of Utah. They have a lot easier schedule coming up. And let's actually see if what she says kind of bears out. Prospective game logs, is that what it is? What is that? I don't know what that is. Remaining schedule strength. So let's just look at Utah. Look, Utah is very happy because they have 42 games left, and they rank high because they play against an average opponent of winning percentage of 52%. So Utah has the 3rd toughest schedule, at least according to Tankathon, according to win percentage against who they play. You go down, and the Raptors, look at that. Easy, like, they have one of the easiest, and look at Washington, actually. This is kind of exciting. Look at this. They have some of the easiest schedules, literally, to end the season when it comes to schedule strength. So that's exciting stuff. Utah very likely can lock down that number 1 pick come lottery night. Now, everyone and their dog who was telling me all sorts of things the other day was like, well, we have just as many odds. Where are you? Blah, 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 blah. Well, Utah, if they, let's go back. That's actually really exciting. Utah has a very, very nice chance of solidifying the number 1. And why is the number 1 any different than the number 3? Because look here, same percentages right there. And that is true. They are the same percentages. But like I've talked about many times on this show, Utah getting the number 1 has everything to do if you lose the lottery. That's why it's important. Why? Because if you're at the number 1 and you lose the lottery, the worst you can, like, let's say you don't get any of the top 4 spots. Let's say it's that bad and you fall. Well, guess what? The worst thing you can get come lottery night is the number 5 pick in the draft. We saw that happen with Detroit. Houston ended up, you know what I mean? So, and guess what? Detroit got some nice players with that. Houston has gotten some nice players with the 5. So that's what you want. And so Utah in this draft, which is a very good draft, at worst you're picking between, VJ Edgecombe's looking like he's at 4 now for them. Ace Bailey's been playing much better lately, so he is looking like he's solidifying that 3. You never know if by the end of the year he overcomes the 2 spot with Dylan Harper. I think he's hurt right now. He might have come back. I'm not sure. VJ Edgecombe is a development player, but the defensive potential is through the roof. And his athleticism is, and that's what people describe him as 100 percentile. He is like one of those one-of-one athletes. He's incredible athlete. And he's 6'5", he's a shooting guard, but my gosh, he would be a phenomenal asset to add to the Jazz. And, if Utah falls to 5 and VJ Edgecombe's there, I could very much see them wanting someone like him because Utah may not be interested in winning a lot of games next year, especially if they need to keep their top 8 pick. You bring on a VJ Edgecombe, let him play every single game next year at the shooting guard, let him develop, go through his lumps or whatever. Tankathon has this new bottom thing here, and it keeps driving me crazy. But you know what I mean? So Utah has all these different things. Looks like Trey Johnson's falling. I think he's struggled as of late. Look at Yegor Demon falls to 10. I actually get to go watch him play tomorrow night. I'm going to be like row 4. It might be even courtside. We'll see. But I'm very excited to watch him tomorrow and see if 10 is right. But look at all these players rising. There's going to be even more movement. He may rise even more when we come back to it. Always adjusts. But anyways, that means that Utah at the 5, the worst case scenario is Kasparis Jakusonis, who a lot of people really like. And then get their choice of these guys. Like maybe they like Kaman Malawach at number 5. You can pick him. So that's the big thing, and it's going extremely well. Now, the other side of the coin is Utah wins the lottery. Utah wins the lottery and gets at least a top 4, and then you're picking from these guys. That's incredible. I would prefer a top 3 because I think these 3 are where you'd really like to be, and Utah giving themselves the best shot is incredible and fantastic doing what they're doing. You think any teams offer anything for Clarkson, Sexton, or Collins? Well, thank you, Molly Pond. Thank you. I think that, well, we got the rumor. I wrote about it on SLC Dunk. I hope you guys are reading SLC Dunk regularly. The Golden State Warriors are interested in John Collins. Now, if a deal gets done, that's different. Having interest and calling the Jazz about him is different than trying to make a trade happen. And then it's even more different than doing the work to get the trade through, right? It's harder to make a trade now than ever before. And so we'll see. Clarkson, there was a rumor out there today. I think I might do a video. We'll see. I need to start doing a rumor roundup or something like that. I'll write about it tomorrow. But it sounds like Dallas might have some interest in Jordan Clarkson. I wrote about some trade ideas for Collin Sexton like 2 weeks ago, just And it's hard to make a trade. Sexton makes $18 million. Those kind of upper teen level contracts are not as tradable as they were 2-3 years ago before the new CBA went into effect. There's just not a lot of players that are having that level of contract. So it's hard to do one-for-one trades because there's a lot of guys that don't match. And usually when you're making trades, at least right now in the modern NBA, there's not a lot of trades where it's like, occasionally they happen. Like we saw it with the Minnesota Timberwolves and the New York Knicks, where they kind of traded need for need. The Knicks basically came out the winner of that trade, but trading Karl Anthony Towns for Julius Randle and Dante DiVincenzo, that doesn't happen all that often. It does happen. You'll see that, but it's usually kind of end of the bench kind of guys and backups that kind of fill a need, and teams can make those contracts work. A lot of the trades that you're trying to do is like a team that's trying to win with a team that's trying to lose, and the losing team trying to trade that team their better veterans, kind of like the Jazz with Collin Sexton and John Collins. But the thing is it's tough. Those winning teams have maxed out cap space, right? And what makes it hard is this new CBA makes it even more difficult for teams with cap space filled out to make a trade. So that's where we're at. It's going to be very difficult for Utah to make a move. I wouldn't be surprised if they do, though, but it's probably going to be for a lot less than people expect, because in a lot of ways, Utah is trying to incentivize other teams to make those trades with Utah, and that means giving those players for much less. And a lot of times, those teams don't have it. Like, if you're making a trade with the Phoenix Suns, they don't have anything. So you're kind of, if you want to make a trade with them, good luck. They just don't have much. And one of the difficult things with the CBA, and let me know in the comments if I'm wrong, but as far as I understand, teams that are in like the second apron of the CBA cannot combine players together. They basically can do one for one. Like they can only trade one player. I don't know. There's a lot of things like that, and I'm not completely accurate on that, so don't quote me. But there's things like that are just extremely difficult. If I could, I was talking about this on the playback with Sven when we were watching the game. By the way, if you want to stream the game and watch it with me, go join the SLC Dunk playback. It's a lot of fun, and you can literally watch the game with us on playback. But anyways, it's just all the content out there of people saying, "Oh, the NBA sucks," or "No, I don't like watching." Those people aren't watching the NBA, for one, because it's freaking fun. Tonight's game was a blast. Tonight's game was so much fun. There were so many different things going on. And this was a game where the Jazz lost by double digits. And at one point we're down by like 20, but this was a fun game. The Jazz were like close in the second half. They, it's the first quarter where Utah lost this game, which is fine. That's what they want to do. But Utah pulled back into it. There was like a real battle between Drew Eubanks and Zion Williamson, which was honestly a blast. And, people who are saying that stuff and also the ones that get on my nerves are like the national writers from these big time outlets saying that there's all these things wrong with the NBA. There's nothing wrong. It's fine. It's a lot of fun. If you're watching the games, they're a blast. Even just the Jazz. I mean, the half court heave by Trae Young and all these close wins. Like, however you feel about the tank, watching Isaiah Collier make the game winner. I mean, they're just fun games. I don't get it. That said, and I said this on the playback, if there is one thing I could change about the NBA, and it's not about the product or the viewing experience or anything, I would just make it so that you didn't have to match salaries to make a trade happen, because that's the hardest part. If you want to trade Sexton to the Lakers, it's hard for them to, or whoever, or like the Denver Nuggets or whoever. It's hard to make the salaries match because he makes $8 million. And the types of players Utah would want, the rookies who are on a rookie scale, are making somewhere between 1 and 10 million. And usually they're between 1 and 5 million because no one's trading their top 5 picks, because the rookies, when they come in the NBA, I think they start off at like 10 million if you're the number 1 pick. And then it slowly, gradually lowers until I think Taylor Hendricks is making like 5 million or something, kind of around there, maybe more, maybe less. I can't remember, at the number 9. So I don't know. That's the one thing I would change, because then you can actually make a trade happen. Like Collin Sexton for a first-round pick and Jalen Hood-Schifino. Like, I would do that in a heartbeat. Jalen Hood-Schifino is not going to change whether the Jazz win or not. But if Utah trades Collin Sexton to the Lakers for they have to make the salaries match. So maybe you're bringing over, we bring back Vando to the Jazz or someone like that, Vanderbilt, because you have to make salaries match. It's just hard to do, and it's hard to kind of align your goals. So we'll see. It's going to be tough for the Jazz during trade deadline, but very likely they do move some of these guys. I think there's definitely teams out there that'll be willing to do it, but anyone you shouldn't be surprised if it's for less than you thought, because Utah's trying to kind of fit their goals, and the goals is Cooper Flagg. But anyways, that's basically what I want to say. This Pelicans team is absolutely different with Zion Williamson. He is just an game changer. The gravity he creates that opens things up for everyone else. Like, everyone will look at just +5 for Zion. Well, that's because he's got the gravity of the freaking sun. He drives to the basket. It takes multiple people to stop him. He is a good passer. He's just absolutely unbelievable. And he looks honestly near 100% back. He looks lean, strong. I mean, he's back. So this Pelicans team is going to keep winning games unless he gets injured or something. Utah can basically just watch New Orleans. They're going to keep falling. I wouldn't be surprised if New Orleans ends in this area and he ends up even competing for the play-in. Another team competing for spots here against the Minnesota Timberwolves is always a good thing. But they're great, and then so it makes players like Trey Murphy have much more open shots. So Trey Murphy gets open shots. C.J. McCollum, 50% from 3. DeJounte Murray, he's not that great, but he's making shots. Jose Alvarado, look at that, 6 for 11. So it's crazy the impact he has. Zion Williamson is truly just unbelievable. Now, the question for him is always, can he stay healthy? When he's healthy, he is truly one of the most gravitational players in the league. And when I say gravitational, it means you have defenders coming off their guys and coming to him. And he's one of those that pulls that gravity to him when he goes to the basket. Kind of like Steph Curry does, but Steph Curry is like the Jupiter of the universe because he's away from the basket. If the basket is the sun, the perimeter planets like Jupiter or Saturn are pulling people away, right? That doesn't make a lot of sense, but it does in my head. But there's basically gravity near the basket, and there's gravity near the three-point line. And Zion is about as gravitational near the basket, pulling defenders to him as you can be. And then what's nice is he does pass it out to the three-point line. He had 6 assists tonight. Incredible. Because he's pulling people to him at the basket and then passing it out to open three-point shooters. And you can see that right there. Look at that. C.J. McCollum, 6 for 12. All of this. So that's the impact of having a superstar talent. That's the impact of having a number 1 overall pick. If anyone asked you if tanking works. And yes, Zion has not stayed healthy, and he's kind of one of the biggest what-ifs. But who knows? Maybe he stays healthy from here on out. There to do $1. Thank you so much, my man. I appreciate it so much. There to do with $1. Every little bit means so much to me. Thank you, There to do. I really appreciate it. And by the way, like and subscribe the video. If you're a Jazz fan or an NBA fan, you absolutely will be happy you did. And if you want to support the channel like There to do, you can do a super chat like that, or you can join the channel. I really appreciate it. All right, so let's talk about the Jazz. This was a rough first quarter for Utah. It was really tough, but in a lot of ways, this had a lot of stories to it. That's why basketball's great. There's 4 quarters, which means 4 stories, and each story can change. The first quarter, Keyonte George was not good at all. He really struggled. He only played 8 minutes in the first half, but luckily he came back and played well. But Cody Williams really struggled in this one. Holy cow, this might have been his biggest struggle of a night. He played 18 minutes, and he just was kind of unimpactful. Some of that is maybe not his fault if you have Keyonte George really struggling and running the point. But Cody Williams really struggled. On top of that, Bryce Sensabaugh really struggled in the first quarter, like badly, and then really turned it around. So that was nice to see. Svi Mikhailiuk, he absolutely is, I don't know if Will Hardy gives him the green light or if he personally just gave himself the green light. But when he gets the ball, he shoots it. He took 10 threes, which was more than anyone else on the team. He took 14 field goals, which was only second to Keyonte George. He absolutely, when he's on the floor, he's like, I'm Jesus Shuttleworth. I am Ray Allen. I am taking this shot. I don't know. And some nights he actually, and you know, you look at the percentages, 30% is not great. But it's not the worst thing ever. I just kind of, you know, I don't have a lot to complain about tonight because everything worked out kind of how you would want. But he scores 16 points. He absolutely is shooting it when he gets it. There's not much else to Svi Mikhailuk. Cody Williams, you know, it's a little rough. We just got to be honest. I know I tend to be much more positive than negative, and we're going to try to stay positive. I like some of the defensive things I see from him. He's just going to be a project, and I think that we really need to not make any sort of big overarching judgments until like the year 2-3 mark at least, because what he does have is the physical tools, and sometimes you see those really show on the defensive end. But mentally, he's got to get stronger and just not, and I think he is getting better that way. He doesn't look so distraught as like he did the first kind of month of the season. But he's just also got to find ways to impact the game, and it's going to take time. It is absolutely just a project, and maybe more of a project than we thought. But you know what? I think everyone kind of expected him to struggle a little bit. He's so skinny, and he's really young, and it's just going to take some time. He's 20 years old. It's okay. That's kind of what you expect with some of these picks. They're not going to, some picks kind of figure things out faster. You know, some players like Keyonte George, who has so much flash, and there is like definite just skill from day one, but even Keyonte George has a lot to learn and grow. But Cody Williams is not there even where Keyonte George was starting, right? He's just got to develop, and that takes time. So we listen. What is the trend on TikTok that I guess is ending? I don't know. We listen, we don't judge, right? Or we watch, we don't judge yet. Is that maybe that's how the saying should go. We watch, we don't judge. We watch, we don't judge. Drew Eubanks, I created a new trend on the SLC Dunk Twitter. I don't think I'm going to really get on I am on DM groups with my personal, but it's just, sorry, my Twitter account may as well be dead. I just do not have any reason to tweet from there. If you want to follow me and get my personal thoughts out there, though, I do tweet during the game a little bit from the SLC Dunk Twitter, and I'm on Blue Sky, and I enjoyed skeeting on Blue Sky. But yeah, anyways, on the SLC Dunk Twitter, we do moyais now for Drew Eubanks. It was Sven's idea. I thought it was funny. So every time Drew Eubanks does a thing, we do a stone-faced moyai. And he earned some moyais tonight. He had 4 blocked shots, 7 rebounds, and he made Zion Williamson so mad. The reason Zion cheered so loud on that big-time dunk that he did was because Drew Eubanks was in his head. No question. Anyone who disagrees, you didn't watch the game. Drew Eubanks did some of the best job guarding Zion Williamson, like you'll see. Zion Williamson, you guys remember Jerome Bettis, the bus, the running back in the NFL? Do you remember Mike Allstott, the running back, the fullback for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, one of my favorite football players ever? That's kind of like the type of thing you're trying to guard when you're guarding Zion Williamson. Go look at, like, if you didn't watch this game, just go look at Zion Williamson and what he is bringing to the table. He is like a 6'8" pit bull, just pure, raw, explosive muscle and strength that he combines with incredible touch around the rim. He has an uncanny knack for going off the backboard and putting the ball in the hoop. I can't tell you guys, like, Zion's unbelievable. He's truly, when he's healthy and he's fit, NBA fit, whatever you want to call it, he's unbelievable. unbelievable. And he has looked so good since coming back from injury. And Drew Eubanks, sometimes we call him Drew Chamberlain when he's hitting the hook shot. Sometimes we call him Drew Mutombo when he's blocking shots. Tonight he was freaking Drew Mutombo with the 4 blocks, but he did a legitimately great job on Zion Williamson. And we talked about defensive LeBron, offensive LeBron, the advanced analytic. Drew Eubanks measures out as like the second best defensive player on the Jazz, according to that analytic. And tonight kind of showed why, because he is strong, he plays hard, he defends, he just plays the right way. He's a great teammate. He is just flat out tough. And to go up and do that and play against Zion Williamson, who I promise you is the least fun guy to defend in the NBA. Maybe Anthony Edwards, maybe. But Anthony Edwards is not as strong as Zion. It's like trying to guard the Thing from Fantastic Four. He's just like built like a rock. He's huge, strong. Like, it's just got to be so unfun. And Drew Eubanks does not care. He eats fun for breakfast is what he does. So anyways, that's my segment on Drew Eubanks. I am a fan. I hope he's on the Jazz until he retires, because you want guys like that. You want toughness to teach these young guys toughness. Collin Sexton came out and was 7 for 11 from field. Oh, thank heaven for 7-11, right? 24 points, 5 assists, 5 rebounds. Collin Sexton was nice tonight. He's just a nice offensive talent. Now, he's not a good defender at all. He's really bad. Speaking of D. LeBron, he literally grades out as the worst defender in the NBA. But offensively, he's great. And you asked about Sexton possibly being traded. There might be someone who wants him, but when he's putting up numbers like this, it's just crazy. 63% from the field as a 6'1", 6-foot point guard, shooting guard, whatever you call him. He is fantastic at just scoring efficiently. Now, some of this you could question a little bit, because is some of this in garbage time, and is he taking advantage of weaker defenders when they've kind of pulled their starters? I don't know. I don't know if there's, I mean, I know I'm the one who kind of rings that bell a little bit, but he does this throughout the game. He played 31 minutes. It's not 31 minutes of garbage time. He's doing that all game. So impressive stuff from Sexton, being a good dude, being a good soldier, because, you know, the Jazz are trying to lose and he's still going out there and playing. I think that Utah needs to trade him yesterday, because it just does not match the Jazz's goals. And I just honestly, and this is something I want to talk about, I guess, right now, because that's all I got to say on Collin Sexton. But last game was fun. This game was fun. And part of the reason, and a lot of people talked about it in the playback, and maybe you let me know in the comments if you agree, but it is just more fun when you're watching Keyonte George in the backcourt with Isaiah Collier and Bryce Sensabaugh, because those guys are the future. And so when you see them doing good things, it's just more satisfying. It's nice watching Collin Sexton do nice things. I'm always going to root for the Jazz guys, always. But Collin Sexton, to me, kind of represents training wheels. You know, when you have Keyonte George struggling or Collier struggling, you end up just having them just kind of pass the ball to Sexton to let him figure something out. And it's training wheels. Utah needs to take those off. They need to let them go through their struggles. It's okay to struggle. That's what you want. That's what this season is about. You want these players to get better. So to me, trading Sexton in a lot of ways is just taking the training wheels off and letting these players play. We've seen what happens when you take it off. Phrasing. We've seen what happens when you give Walker Kessler opportunities. He's absolutely shining. And the guys that are going to make it are going to shine. If they're not, they're not. That's why Cody Williams, you know, we'll see. We watch, we don't judge. But what we do, more phrasing, is we've got Walker Kessler, who's showing that he is 100% a starting level center, a home run in that trade with Rudy Gobert. In fact, just a side note, Utah has already gotten Utah has already gotten Walker Kessler and Keyonte George in the trade for Rudy Gobert. Minnesota's struggling right now. Do you think if Utah called and said we'd give you Walker Kessler and Keyonte George for Rudy Gobert, you think they'd take it? I bet you they would in a heartbeat. In a heartbeat. But guess what? We ain't doing it. Because guess what? We got so many picks left, and Keyonte George is improving. Walker Kessler is looking like, he may not be quite the level that Rudy Gobert is defensively, but he's certainly getting close. And when it comes to like hands and offensive rebounds, he's just as good. Well, he's got better hands than Rudy. So the only thing that Kessler's got to really work on is the free throws. That's a legitimate concern because at the end of games, if Kessler can't make his free throws, then he's going to be constantly getting fouled and go to the free throw line. So Kessler needs to absolutely shoot 1,000 free throws a day this offseason and just make it automatic. So, anyways, Keyonte George, like I said, he only played 8 minutes in the first quarter. He was not good. He was really bad and struggled. He shot his way out of it and ended up having a big-time third and fourth quarter, and it's nice to see. So he gets his shooting percentage up to 45. He was at 1.2 for 10 and ends up, in fact, that means that he made 7 of his last 10 to get to 45% from the field, 4 for 9 from 3. These are great percentages. Now, he's probably taken advantage of a little bit of weaker defenders, so you'd like to see him be doing this in the first quarter rather than the third and fourth, but better to do it later than not, right? So nice to see. 2 assists, 1 steal. I think with these 2 assists, that actually got Keyonte George to 500 assists as a Jazz man. It's pretty cool. Kyle Filipowski, 2 for 2 from the field. He seems to be struggling at just a tiny bit, but he definitely has moments and flashes. And if he can he had that turned ankle, and I wonder if that's bothering him still a little bit. But Filipowski, 2 for 2 from the field, 2 assists, 2 rebounds. I don't know. He's actually showing a lot of signs of just being a very solid rotational player for a long time. I think it'll be nice to watch him next year too and see kind of if he earns more minutes. This offseason, before we move on, is absolutely fascinating for Utah. We've talked about this. When you consider that Utah's going to bring in 3 picks this draft, you have the 3 picks, the 3 players the Jazz drafted already in George, Hendricks, and Sensabaugh. And all 3 of those players look like they have potential. None of them look like busts. We'll see how good they become, but you're gonna want to give them minutes and see if they can continue to develop. So that's 6 players right there on the roster. Then you also add in the fact that you have Cody Williams, Isaiah Collier, and Kyle Filipowski. That's 9 players right there. And we haven't even mentioned Walker Kessler that the Jazz got in that trade. That is 10 young players that need roster spots. That means that leaves you 5 spots outside of kind of the younger players. Obviously, one of those is Lauri Markkanen. And then you've got the 3 players on contract next year in Collins, Clarkson, and Sexton. So next year is fascinating. I don't know. I mean, Utah has 10 young players, absolutely. And honestly, you could probably put Kessler, the way he plays, into that tier with Markkanen at this point. So I guess 9. But that's 9 young players that Utah is going to want to kind of see if they have something with those players. And that makes you just wonder, what are they doing with John Collins? What are you doing with Sexton? What are you doing with Clarkson? Because you want to give those minutes to Taylor Hendricks next year. Honestly, you really do. And Lauri Markkanen is probably better as a 4 than he is a 3. And so Utah has a logjam there with Hendricks, Markkanen, John Collins, and you don't know what you're going to draft this draft. But if you win the lottery and you get Cooper Flagg, then and if Utah's just putting their best players on the floor, you've got real questions of who's going to be on the floor. So, if let's say the Jazz win Cooper Flagg and they just keep the roster the way it is, that's like, are you starting Cooper Flagg with Lauri Markkanen and Walker Kessler and then Keyonte George and Collin Sexton, I guess, unless they draft, that's that's an interesting lineup. It's not good enough to win the championship, but that's definitely a lineup that's good enough to be better than bottom 8, right? Especially with all these teams tanking, and there's going to be teams wanting AJ DeBonsa. It's going to be a fascinating offseason, you know? I just have, what if Utah plays Hendricks next year and he takes a big leap? Because I think we were going to see a leap from Hendricks this year. That is the biggest bummer of this season, is that I think Hendricks was going to take a leap and didn't get the chance to do it. We already saw some signs in those first 3 games. The thing that was really exciting was that he grew he was stronger to be able to withstand kind of the rigors of the NBA season. 82 games is no joke. It is no joke. And so he looked absolutely ready to go. And that was such a bummer to not have him play. And what if he does take a leap? What if he does become something extremely interesting, some extreme impact? Then maybe you do think about just going completely young. Then do you go out and get 3 picks for Lauri Markkanen or something, and then play some sort of lineup where it's like Cooper Flagg, Taylor Hendricks, Walker Kessler. Then at that point, with that front court, you have absolutely an incredible defensive front court. Could you imagine? Incredible stuff. And then if you can somehow get someone at the number 2. I mean, what if Collier? I don't know. There's really some exciting things to think about what this Jazz team could become. The biggest deficit for this team is the defensive talent. And so you need players that can absolutely get there. So speaking of Collier, he is so fun. He is so fun. I love Isaiah Collier. He had that dust up with what's his name? Jose Alvarado. Was it? Is it Jose? Yeah. Jose Alvarado. They had that dust up. He did not react at all. He is super tough. And then he had that there might be a fine coming because they showed a video. He took a cheap shot on Alvarado later. And I don't know if it's online. Maybe I should do a breakdown of that whole thing. But man, is he fun to watch. He is fun to watch. And so Isaiah Collier, yes, the shooting's not there, but he's been making threes. I'm bummed because he made a 3 and I think his last 3. That streak ends today, but 3 for 10 from the field, 2 for 4 from the free throw line. He had 11 assists. He is so awesome. And I tell you what, outside of Drew Eubanks and Walker Kessler, he might be the Jazz's second best defender. He is awesome. He is a fire hydrant on defense. You cannot move him, at least the guards. He is strong. He barrels into people. He does not care. He is a great steals guy. How many steals did he have tonight? Just 1. But he is honestly, I would not be surprised if by the end of his career, he's a 2+ steal per game guy because he just gets his hands on balls. That one that one today, he ripped the basketball right out of, I can't remember whose hands it was. It was awesome. Awesome. And some of his passing really it's pretty special stuff. I mean, that one pass he made to Shibwe, and he missed the dunk, was such a bummer. It would have been 12 assists. He missed the dunk, but it was such a cool, it was Stockton-esque. Should I invoke the name of the legend? I just did. It was that one-handed left. He was dribbling the ball with his left hand, just swings it over to Shibwe, and it was perfectly placed so Shibwe could just absolutely dunk the ball, and Sheebs missed the dunk. Come on, Sheebs. Got to knock it down. But anyways, Collier is a lot of fun. The question is the shooting. It's looking better. If he figures it out and this shooting gets better, he becomes quite the weapon for Utah. And who knows what his future is. Maybe he's a starter. Maybe he's off the bench. Either way, what a steal for Utah, because he was at the end of the second round, or the first round, not the second round, the first round. What a steal. and he's a great guy to have around. Everyone seems to enjoy Collier. So what a blast. What a fun player to watch. Just got to figure out the shooting. That's the most important part. But everything else is great. The defense, the strength, the toughness, the mentality, the great personality. You can just tell he's a funny guy. I don't know. I love Collier. He's phenomenal. If you're not watching these games, you're missing out, because Collier does one or two things a game that are just like fun, just great. And the way he plays is just everything you want a Jazz player to do. I love players that crash into the defender and create their own gravity, and he absolutely does it. He's got some development to do for sure. He's got to figure out some things like taking a floater instead of just dive bombing into the rim protector, right? Maybe a little mid-range pull-up, a floater shot, or just learning when to just not take the shot and back it out and pass it out, right? Those are things that just come with it, with time. And him getting 35 minutes, this is so huge. So huge. This type of player would have never played under Quinn Snyder. Never. So shout out to Will Hardy, who is all in doing the right things as well. Isaiah Collier would have been called a bust because he can't shoot the three at 40+%. But you're missing out on everything else. Look at this. Utah lost this game by double digits. He was a +8. And that is for 35 minutes. That tells you everything you need to know. He comes off the bench, 35 minutes, pretty phenomenal stuff. So I'm just falling in love with this guy. I love Isaiah Collier. Bryce Sensabaugh, like we said, he had some struggles in the first half, but really turned it around. You can see that there in the plus-minus. 15 points, 2 rebounds, 2 assists. That's great. Ends up at one point he was 42%, so he missed a couple late, but 33% from 3 is fine. 50% from the field. Sensabaugh is just turning into a nice offensive player. It is interesting. Sven brought it up, and I also was kind of like, it's a good question and something to watch. Why? But he does not crack the starting lineup. Even when they were resting Sexton, they started Collier over, and maybe Collier just has earned it over Sensabaugh. I kind of wonder if it's a defensive thing. But, there's a point where you're like, is it overkill with Utah's offense that's actually been very good this year? Sensabaugh starting at the 2 makes sense to me, but they played Collier, and you know what? Will Hardy, I, at this point, trust Will Hardy to just make the right decision, and he's picking the player that deserves, like, the order of things is right with Will Hardy. And I love that Will Hardy switches up lineups. He doesn't just have it set in stone like Quinn Snyder used to do. He actually adjusts. He lets players earn their role. If the player's playing well, they get more minutes. Like Filipowski didn't play very well, but Collier did, so he got 35 minutes. Right? And honestly, Filipowski was 2 for 2. I don't know. The 2 for 2 is a little deceiving. He struggled a tiny bit. But Collier did not, and he was a big part of what they were doing. It's been kind of fun watching the 2 G League guys. Elijah Harkless has been pretty fun. He had absolutely a scary fall. Him and Trey Murphy went up for just a loose ball in the air, and Trey Murphy caught his arm, and he fell flat on his back, and it looked like it really, I don't know if he's going to play next game, because although Utah has like 3 days rest, so maybe, but he hit his back hard, like kind of like, is this guy going to have a bone bruise? Hopefully his tailbone's okay. It looked like it hurt. But he's been kind of fun to watch. He took 0 shots, which is interesting. He did have 2 steals, and I think he considers himself an incredible defender, so I don't know. I'm just kind of curious to watch him and see if he's anything. Oscar Tshiebwe, I call him Sheebs. I am really excited to watch this guy. He has the best attitude. I think everyone fell in love with him with his preseason interviews. He just has this incredibly bright and happy personality. I don't know how else to describe him. He kind of, maybe let me know, but he just has a hint of like Westbrook to his face. But anyways, he is so fun. I at least in the G League, he had like for the Stars, he had, in fact, is this his G League stats? Why don't they have his NBA stats? What the heck? Why does it link to the G League? What the heck? But anyways, in the G League, look at this. He is averaging 17 points, and look at the rebounds. He is averaging almost 20 rebounds per game. 19, this is actually a bummer. He was, I think, at one point averaging 20 rebounds per game in the G League. He is a rebounding monster. He is, I am rooting for this guy so hard. And if you're not watching these games, you're missing out on things like this. You got to be a real Utah Jazz sicko like me, watching these games for 12 minutes of the Sheebs, of Oscar Tshiebwe. But it is fun. He is an absolute rebounding monster. And I love it because he's like 6'8". What is he? Yeah, 6'8". So he is undersized, but what he does is he goes out and he rebounds the basketball. Tonight, 5 rebounds, but that's in 12 minutes. So if you average that out to his per 36, so, starter minutes, 36 minutes a game, what is that? That's easy math. That's 12 times 3. 5 times 3 is 15. So he would average per 36, 15 rebounds. I don't know. There's something about a guy that just knows how to rebound the basketball that I love. I don't know what it is, but I am excited to watch him the rest of the year. Something tells me we're going to see a lot of the Sheebs for the rest of the year, and I am absolutely here for it. I am here for it. I am excited to watch Oscar Tshiebwe. If you are enjoying Oscar Tshiebwe, then me and you can be friends, basically. It's phenomenal. Patty Mills went in and he played 8 minutes. He might be washed, even though he goes in and he takes 2 shots and he made one of and they were both threes and he made one of them. I don't know. Patty Mills is nice to have around. It's just nice to have a veteran presence. Anyways, I think that's everything with the team. This was a fun one, guys. This was a really fun game. If you're not watching, you're missing out. I know the Jazz are losing and at times they're down big, whatever. There are so many fun little things to watch. Watching Isaiah Collier, 11 assists. Watching Oscar Tshiebwe battle it out with other, it's pretty fun. Watching Keyonte George knock down shots, score 26 points, and this was like a tough night, and he scored 26. And I know someone's got to score, but there are a lot of things to be excited about with Keyonte George. There was an interesting quote. We talked about it in the playback, and I think Sarah Todd, who covers the Jazz for the Deseret News, mentioned this, but she talked to Keyonte George. And it's kind of not a great sign for developmental basketball in the United States in general, but Will Hardy is one of the first ones to get on Keyonte George about his defense in his entire basketball career. And when you consider the AAU and these guys like Keyonte George are going to elite level high schools, kind of like AJ DeBonce's going and Montverde with Cooper Flagg and places like that. They're just not being asked to do certain things. And so it's interesting that this is the first time he's getting hounded by it. So I think there is definitely a world where he just gets better at it. The defense is not good. And you can go look at his defensive LeBron and it's bad. But he's 6'4" and he's long and he's pretty athletic. And, pretty quick on his feet. I think he can definitely become, at worst, an average defender. And it's just something to watch. That's some of the things that develop too. Now, he may not. But he spent his whole career learning how to play offense, and now he's learning to play defense. And it's something to watch. I guess that's all the thoughts I had tonight, though. I don't think there's really anything else. Johnny Juzang didn't play. I think he was actually listed as out, so he likely would have played had he not been. Anyways, like I said, make sure that you subscribe to the channel and like the video if you enjoyed it. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Let's see. All right, oh, no, not this. We got to see. So this is the other big news, guys. Look at this. Utah now sits at 3. And like we mentioned, Washington and Toronto have the 2 easiest schedules to end the season. And basically what it means is they have to play each other. So those teams have to win some of those games. It's going to be incredible. And look at how many New Orleans is going to rise to this. At this point, New Orleans is going to start winning games. They're a good team. With Zion Williamson back, they're good. And with 3 days rest, we get to see Zion again, unless he misses. Oh, but I think this next game's in New Orleans, so he can't miss the flight. Yeah. But anyways, New Orleans is going to rise. So basically, you look at the teams Utah's competing with: Charlotte, Toronto, Washington, and they all have to play each other. Like, Washington and Toronto have to play each other. Toronto's going to win some games they don't want to win. Washington, too. I don't know if Utah can overtake Washington, but the way Utah's doing this, it's phenomenal, and they are going to be right here, and they have as good a shot, literally, as anyone at Cooper Flagg. You could not ask for more. Now, we could ask a few things, but that would be nitpicking, and I've done enough of that. So, anyways, this is absolutely phenomenal. Utah's doing exactly what they need to do. Minnesota won tonight, so that was a bummer. They were at 1 point down, so that would have been 21-20, and that puts them here. Man, I didn't know Detroit's given their pick to Minnesota. Look at that. That's protected. Wow. So Minnesota's got to be pretty happy about that. But Minnesota needs to give their pick to well, they are giving their pick to us. They just need to get worse. Some bad signs for Minnesota. They can't trade Julius Randle. No one wants him. And Mike Conley is looking like he might be washed at this point. So Utah traded him at the right time because he is just really struggling. He's not even starting. They are playing basically Dante DiVincenzo and Anthony Edwards as the guard. They are, you obviously don't wish for it, but they've been pretty healthy this whole season. They are one injury to one of their core guys from really dropping down to here. And when you got teams like, look at Sacramento, 8-2 in their last 10 games. They're coming. And Golden State, 5-5. Minnesota's, look at this, 5-5 as well in their last 10. Minnesota is just, they are on the verge of some sort of disaster. If anything goes wrong, anything. That is a very, very, what's the word? Fragile ecosystem going on in this Minnesota team right now. Just fragile ecosystem. Anything happens to any of their kind of core guys, and they're in trouble. So we'll see. We'll see. I'm not expecting any of you to get out the voodoo dolls, but if you're so inclined. And that's just wishful thinking on my part. Think about this, though. Utah gets the 18 pick. If the draft was today, Utah would have a shot at, I don't know who Boogie Fland is, but Liam McNeely played with Cooper Flagg at Montverde, and he's a shooter. And Hugo Gonzalez, oh my gosh, look at that. I would absolutely take Hugo Gonzalez. Why? Because he was kind of slated top 5 before the season started. He's definitely dropped. But part of what makes him interesting is his size and defense. And, Utah needs defensive talent, like we said. That's why Cody Williams, we got to be patient, but he also needs to really figure it out pretty quickly because let's say Utah brings in someone like Hugo Gonzalez and he lives up to his top 5, kind of like how Keyonte George, remember Keyonte George? Before that season started, Utah drafted him. He was slated like top 5, and then he dropped to 16, and Utah got him at 16. What if there's something like that with someone like Hugo Gonzalez, who kind of looks more like a top 5 pick than a number 18 pick? It could happen. You never know. And you know who's pretty great at developing guys that we found out? Will Hardy, and the Utah Jazz coaching staff is doing a great job. So, a lot of these guys, I need to dive deeper into these later rounds. But Utah may have a chance to draft someone even with the Wolves pick. That's the Detroit pick, but the Wolves pick that maybe we didn't expect. If it's in this range, we got to be pretty excited. I love Derek Queen. I really do. And I know Utah has Kessler. But man, is Derek Queen fun. He kind of looks like baby Embiid to me. That's who I think I would compare him to. he has this like incredible touch shooting the ball. Look at this, 1.6 steals. He is not an explosive up and down athlete, but I tell you what, I mean, there are like, and I don't want to sound blasphemous. I don't want to be blasphemous. But there are tiny shades of Karl Malone. Tiny, tiny, tiny. Karl Malone, when he was hitting that kind of that free throw, that 10-foot fadeaway. For those of us who watched Karl Malone, right? KG10, you know what I'm talking about, where it's like that 10 to 15-foot range where Karl Malone became kind of automatic. There's a little bit of, if Derek Queen is a stew, there's a pinch of Karl Malone, there's a pinch of Joel Embiid. And it's kind of baby Joel Embiid, you know, because he's 6'10", not 7'2" or 3 like Embiid is. But go watch the highlights and tell me he doesn't look a little like Joel Embiid. Just go watch him. It's pretty amazing because he goes to free throw line. That free throw line jump shot looks incredible, and he's a good passer because look at this. He's averaging 2.5 assists, 1.3 blocks, and this is probably, let's see, in like, what, 20 minutes per, I don't know how many minutes per game he's playing, but per game averages 27 minutes per game. Yep. 16.2, 1.9 assists, 7.8 rebounds, and he plays with absolute force. He just like dunks everything. I love that. He's my dream for the Wolves pick, kind of. Because I kind of think that he's got potential to be more than, you know, like the guys that get picked in the mid lottery that end up being a lot better than you think. He's kind of I could see him being an all-star if he, like, you know, like kind of like what everyone thought Kenny Lofton kind of would be, but his shot didn't actually go in enough. Derek Queen's goes in and he plays strong. And look at this, 1.6 steals. That's a good sign. So when you talk about Karl Malone, who was not a rim protector, but he was a great defender, he was stealing the ball at a high level. Great hands, long arms, super strong. Derek Queen's like that. He just looks super strong. By the way, played with Cooper Flagg at Montverde, and I watched him play. Didn't realize that. I didn't even, honestly, he was always a good player doing nice things. I just didn't realize who he was because I was watching Cooper Flagg. I didn't realize that was Derek Queen. And that would be kind of fun if Utah wins the lottery and this, because I could see the Wolves by the end of the season being 13. Does anyone think that the Wolves have been anything but kind of not as good as you thought? And let's say the Sacramento Kings knock them down here and Golden State overtakes the Wolves. I could see this being the Wolves pick. And could you imagine getting someone like that and reuniting Cooper Flagg and Derek Queen on the Jazz? I mean, that's pretty fun. Pretty fun. The Blizzard. And everything he does is queen-sized, KG10. That's a queen-sized kind of block, right? So anyways, he's a lot of fun. I am really interested. He plays for Maryland. Just go Google it. I'm telling you. Go watch some Derek Queen highlights. He's a fun player. He would be fun to have on the Jazz. All right, so let's start the music and see what would happen if the Jazz, if the lottery was today, right? If the lottery was today, where would the Jazz go? Any bets? Any guesses? Let's see. Here it is. It's lottery night. I've got the anxiety in my stomach already. I do it every single time. I'm a weirdo. Here we go. No. The Golden State Warriors jump 12 spots and take Cooper Flagg. Are you serious? No. It's why Utah's got to get to the number 1, because look what. At worst, it's number 5. The Washington Wizards take VJ Edgecombe. Oh. Also, San Antonio jumps 7 spots and gets Ace Bailey and pair him with Victor Wembanyama. No. This is like worst case scenario. Absolutely horrible. No. Look at that. They jumped all the way from 14. Yo, that would be absolutely the worst thing ever. I would hate every second of that. Utah falls 4 spots. Oh my gosh. We only rise on pessimism. It is true. No way. Whew. But Utah ends up with Trey Johnson or Igor. Oh, look, that's interesting. So they have him on the big board as number 10, but Yegor Deming goes 8. That's interesting. So they have Trey to the Jazz at 7. That would be fun, by the way. Trey Johnson, all he does is hit threes. The name is what he does. All right, let's give a shout out to the All-Stars tonight. Thank you so much to the All-Stars supporting the channel and everyone who's a part of the channel. I appreciate all of you, but especially the All-Stars. Let's give a shout out to Ryan Edward Perry, the legend, Baby Elliot Madsen, See Ya Alexa Later, Christian House Money to Haas, the Outlaw Jesse James Nelson, Jordan the Goat Besserell, Austin our Grant Editor Extraordinaire, KG10 to TH5, and Patrick Akubo, the Connoisseur. Guys, like I said, like the video, subscribe to the channel. And if you want to support the channel, make sure you hit join and join one of the tiers. I appreciate you guys so much. Thank you for all of your support.